Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputra Matra Surupam Rupam Tasyagadamurpuring Mathurim Goshtavatim Radhakundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tamnatosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This morning, by the mercy of Ramanuja, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, I was speaking on Sri Ramanuja Acharya, and I'll continue with that now. As you know, you were just all participating in a Harinama Sankirtan, which is the principal means in the Gauriya Sampradaya, principal means of worshipping Krishna. Not in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. There's more emphasis on deity worship, chanting Vedic mantras or Divya Prabandhams. Nevertheless, I'm very sure that Sri Ramanuja Acharya and Sri Ranganatha Swami are very pleased by this performance of Sri Krishna Sankirtan in this holy place. So I'm speaking on the philosophy of Sri Ramanuja. When we're talking about philosophy, there are different departments of philosophy, but the real substance of it is, what is the nature of reality? And some philosophers say there is no reality. There is no reality. The Mayavadis, the Shankara followers who Ramanuja was mostly combating, they admit that there is reality. But they say it has no characteristics. It's Satchit Ananda, but that is reality. But eternity, eternal, blissful, conscious what? And that's just indescribable. But then there are Buddhists who say that, well, there really is nothing. There's nothing. There's no Buddha. There's no Nirvana. There's no enlightenment. It's even talk. They say ultimately, even talk of that is all just. You can't even talk about it. It's all. There's just nothing. Even if you think of the Buddha, the Buddha is also nothing. Everything's nothing. So the Shankara's philosophy, which is covered Buddhism in the language of the Shastra, Prachannam Bodhamuchyate. It is covered Buddhism. So very similar ideas. They say that the material world is false, it has no actual existence. Because the Shankara's philosophy is that, well, there's only one reality, which is Brahman. But then we see that, all right, this is not Brahman. What we see is not. what we see in this world is not eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. So, what is it? If there's only Brahman, so they say, well, this doesn't really exist. This world doesn't really, it has no actual existence in any sphere whatsoever. Of course, we also say that sometimes this material world is unreal, but it's not completely unreal. It's unreal in the sense that a dream is unreal, but still a dream has some kind of reality, otherwise we wouldn't even have the word dream. So the Shankara made various theories of, it seems to be real. You say, if someone comes up to you and says this world is unreal, and they say, well, I just like to put that theory to a practical test. And here's one hammer, and I'm just going to hit you on the head with it, hard. So, alright, I did it once, and shall I do it again? It's unreal. Remember, it's unreal. Hit him on the head with a hammer. Is it real? Maybe he's unconscious by now, so he can't reply. Or something that might hurt even harder, take his wallet out of his pocket and say, yeah, take the money out, it's all unreal, don't worry about it. Burn his Aadhaar card or whatever, burn his driving license, it's all unreal. So according to Shankara, the material world is false, has no existence whatsoever. But Ramanuja says that it's the energy of the Lord. It's Shakti Matora Bheda. Vyasadeva in the Vedanta Sutras gives it. The energetic and the energy are non-different. But there is difference also. Otherwise you wouldn't have two words. There are two concepts. But they're non-different in the sense that there's no meaning to being the energetic unless there's energy. And there's no energy without a source of energy. So from this understanding, we have the various Vaishnava philosophies, which are the various Vaishnava philosophies, Vishishtadvaita, Achintya Bheda Bheda, Shuddhadvaita, even Dvaita, the Dvaita of Madhvacharya. They all acknowledge this point. There is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Brahman, who is unchangeable, but his energies transform. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shuyate Swabhavaki Jnana Balankrayacha. This is unarguable Shruti text, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. The Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Person, Shvetashvatara especially establishes the Supreme Person. So his energies, the energies of the Supreme, they are heard of in various ways. There are various energies by which he acts, by his power, by his knowledge. So Ramanuja gives a very sensible philosophy, very sensible understanding, that the material world, that which is seen in this world, it is the energy of Godhead. It is not God directly, it is not an illusion, it is the energy of Godhead. And very interestingly, some scholar, this was some time ago, he's a Western scholar, he translated Shankara's Sharirika Bhashya commentary on Vedanta Sutras. Then after that he translated Ramanuja's. This was quite recently, only in the last 20 years. And in his preface he said, well, it seems to me that Ramanuja's it actually makes a lot more sense. Shankara, he really screws the meanings out of the words. So he came under a lot of criticism for this. He said, what do you know? You're from the Shankarites. What do you know? You're just a... He said, well, I'm neutral. I don't have anything to gain or lose by promoting one or the other. I'm just giving my opinion that Shankara's the meanings he gives, they don't actually follow the original text, whereas Ramanuja does. So he came under so much pressure. Then in the second edition, he just left out that comment because the followers of Shankara they were just nasty when they didn't have any good philosophical standpoint. That means even a neutral Western scholar can understand that Ramanuja's explanations, they're actually in line with the Shastra, whereas Shankara, he squeezes out some imagined meaning. So the idea is that, well, Shankara's idea was, well, this world, it's full of discrepancies, so the Supreme is without discrepancies, so how could something inferior come from the superior? These are various ideas. But that we see practically, that the sunshine is not of the same level as the sun, but it comes from the sun. The song sung by a singer is not of the same value as the singer, but it comes from the singer. So the energies of the Lord, there's the material energy, there is the jiva bhuta mahabahoya yedam dharyate jagat. Somehow Shankara, even though these words are there in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita, somehow even these words are there, jiva, Bhagavan, Ishvara, somehow he just mixes them all up and somehow makes it all the same, which is not very honest actually, not very... Well, we know his job is to deliberately create a dishonest philosophy, and people who are dishonest, they like it. Now if we say this, the followers of Shankara become very upset, but we should say it because it's a deceiving philosophy. The idea that we can become God has created havoc in the spiritual life of India and ultimately the world. And we see the effects of that. We see so many bogus things, so many bogus avatars, how can they come up? Here in this area, the most recent prominent bogus guru is this Nityananda Paramahamsa. How can such people come up? Because the clear understanding of Shastra is not given. There's some idea that, well, anyone can become God, and then all the clear understanding, everything becomes fuzzy. And in course of time, even the original Shankara followers, they have to practice very strictly. But because this philosophy is, ultimately it gives, although they follow very strictly, if you take the philosophy that, well, ultimately all is one, then there's nothing to follow strictly. It's like this Buddhist idea. Well, there's no Buddha, there's no Nirvana, there's no enlightenment, then there's no good, there's no bad, there's no birth, there's no death, there's no illusion. You say, well, what do you think? All this birth, death, it's suffering, there's no suffering. No, it's all an illusion. It's not even illusion, there's not even any illusion, there's just nothing. So there's no morality. That's what it comes to. Everything becomes degraded. Ultimately, this Advaitavad has degraded everything. Nirvishesha shunyavadi paschatya deshatarni. Srila Prabhupada came to save the Western world from the philosophies of nirvishesha, of the idea that the Supreme has no attributes, and shunyavadi, those who believe in nothingness. And we say, well, how did he save the Western world from them? No one in the Western world even heard of them before he went there. They don't know how they're influenced by that. in various forms. So Ramanuja, he stresses that the relationship of the jiva means you and me and every other living being in this world, the relationship with the Supreme is that the Supreme is the Supreme Person. We are also individual persons. We are all eternal servants. So this point is stressed. Of course, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings also, the basic teachings begin from Jiva Swarup Hoy Krishna Nitya Das. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, they go up to the gopis of Vrindavan. But the basis of that is understanding that we are all servants of Krishna. And in the opening chapters of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami stresses this very strongly, that even though in the very intimate levels of interaction with Krishna, where it's stated that he prefers the chastisements, he prefers the chiding words of the gopis to the Vedic hymns recited by very staunch brahmanas. So he likes that. His one name is Stava Priya. He likes those prayers are there in the Vedas and then later revealed by different acharyas. He likes that. He very much likes that. But even more, he likes the chastising of the gopis. Why are you stealing our butter? And then the young girl gopis, they also chide and chastise him. So he likes that very much. So it might seem that in the very higher levels, well, actually, of course, we say that the devotee becomes, in one sense, more than God. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami establishes, with all shastric proofs, that all devotees up to the level of Radha, whose very name means she who worships the best. So she takes that in the subordinate position. Ontologically, she is subordinate to Krishna. Ekala Ishvara Krishna, Asabhritya. So everyone is a servant of Krishna. That is the basic understanding. And there's no going higher into the realms of Krishna Lila, Gopi Bhav, Vraja Lila, all these things, without very clearly understanding this point, that we are all servants of Krishna. We are meant for His pleasure. He is not meant for our pleasure. We become happy by serving Him, but we should not try to engage Him in our service. So this point is very much stressed in the Ramanuja Sampradaya. There's very strong emphasis on Dasya Bhav. Get this understood first of all. We are all servants. To become free from illusion means to become free from the misconception that we're not the servants of the Supreme. Now, of the Supreme means Narayana. We say Krishna, mostly they emphasize Narayana. But Akinchan Krishna Prabhu told me that he met one at Jia in South India. Who is he here now? Who said he's reading Prabhupada's books. Where is that? Tirukoilar. Where is that? That's near to Tirunelveli? Where is that? Near Tiruvannamalai. I see. Okay. So he told me, he's speaking with the Jia there, who's reading Prabhupada's books, and he says, actually, your Prabhupada is right. Krishna is supreme. You see, Ranganath Swami has 2 arms. I don't exactly know how that fits, but because Ranganath is when we say the number one deity, of course they're all the same. But at the same time, he's the number one deity. Ranganath is the only deity who all of the Alvas made their songs to. So this is the capital, you could say, of Sri Vaishnavism. So, the point I was making, we say Krishna, they say Narayana. And although there's no difference in one sense, but there's a difference in as much as Krishna is very sweet. His pastimes are very sweet. Now, although there's very much emphasized the service to the Supreme Lord in Ramanuja's teachings, but it's not service in a rigid way. It's a very affectionate manner. They also emphasize this most important point, that the Supreme Lord, Narayana, his greatest quality, what are his qualities? Aishvaryasya, this is Parashara in the Vishnu Purana, which is a very important text of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he has defined Bhagavan, basic definition of Bhagavan. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasya shriyaha jnana vairagya yoshchaiva sannam bhaga itinkina. Who has got the 6 qualities of complete opulence, that means wealth, who owns everything, all power, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation, that person is Bhagavan. Who is that person? Narayana. Alright. Now, out of all the qualities of Bhagavan, which is the most important? Is it his wealth, or his knowledge, or his fame, or his beauty, or his power, or his renunciation? Which one is it? There's none of that. It's Bhaktavatsalya. His affection, like a parent for the child, his affection for his devotees. So this is very much stressed in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, by Ramanuja and his followers. So that's a very brief overview of the teachings of Ramanuja, which Yadava Prakash, you may remember, didn't like at all. If we speak of love of Krishna, the Mayavadis, they become disturbed. They might a little bit try and go along with it, because they're supposed to see everything as one. But they're actually very envious. Paka Mayavadis, they're actually very envious. They don't want that anyone will love Krishna. So that Ramanuja was teaching this, and people were accepting. Oh yes, this is very nice. By his teachings, of course, it's not just by his teachings are perfect, and they appeal to the into the intellect of people of at least somewhat purified consciousness. But his very personality, his very personality is attractive. We find also with Srila Prabhupada, his teachings are very powerful, but his very personality, because he is completely Krishna conscious, so his personality is magnetic. It attracts people to him. Now we find that Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't, in some ways he was, he definitely wasn't trying to show himself. He was very modest in many ways. In many ways he was just, he didn't make any show. He was just like a normal person in many ways. But he was very attractive because he was fully Krishna conscious. Someone who's very Krishna conscious, then just as Krishna is attractive, they also become attractive. So Ramanuja was attracting so many people. His teachings make sense. His personality is very attractive. The one who's a pure devotee of Krishna, their very personality is very attractive. It's very pleasing. Sarva Maha Gunagana Vaishnava Sharire. All the great qualities, they're present in the personage, in the body of a pure devotee. So Yadava Prakash wasn't very happy. He could see that his position as the most esteemed scholar and saintly person in Kanchi was threatened by this young boy who was his disciple. Young boy means he may have been 20 years old, something like this. So then Yadava Prakash, he hatched a plot, and he called some of his students to him and said, you see what Ramanuja is saying? It's completely against the actual teachings of Shastra, because in their understanding, Shastra means as Shankara teaches it. So he said, he's going against the Vedas. Now in those days, among the followers of the Vedas, if you say someone's going against the Vedas, that's the most sinful thing. So to say, he's going against the Vedas by teaching this. So he's a great threat, not just to our philosophy, but to the whole of society. It's very inauspicious. He's teaching. If you teach against the Vedas, it's very inauspicious. So we should do the proper thing and get rid of him. And Yadav Prakash's disciples, they all agreed. So then Yadav Prakash, he made a trip. He called all his disciples and said, okay, we're going to go to the Ganga. In those days, going to the Ganga means by walking. So we see that even today, people generally, they may not like to come such a long distance from North India down here by train, because it'll take them maybe 1.5 days, 2 days journey. But in those days it meant by walking, so it will take you weeks and weeks to go. So it's a major endeavor. You have to plan in advance. You have to have people to help you on the way. So anyway, Yadav Prakash, he made this idea. We'll go for a pilgrimage. We'll call Ramanuja, because Ramanuja is still officially Yadav Prakash's disciple, even though he's teaching independently. So Ramanuja accepted the invitation, and he brought along with him his cousin Govinda, Ramanuja's cousin Govinda. Then some of Yadava Prakash's disciples, they didn't know that Govinda was close with Ramanuja, and they wanted to take his help for killing Ramanuja. So Govinda, he told Ramanuja, said, look, these people, we're only 4 days out on the journey, so their actual plan is to kill you. He took him aside and told him that. So Ramanuja, Govinda said, look, you just get away. You go in because most of the land at that time was forest. So you just go in the forest and get away from these people. They want to kill you. So Govinda went back to the party and said that, well, we went to the forest. We were looking for some wild berries to eat. Then a tiger caught this Ramanuja, and then he took him away. So the Yadav Prakash and the others, they feigned distress, but actually they're very happy. Thought, good, what we wanted to do, it's already done. So the tiger took him away, that's good. That's, you see, it's God's plan. He wanted it. They thought like that. They may have thought like that. So Ramanuja, then he was in the forest, and how to go, he doesn't know. So he was just wandering, hot, hungry, thirsty. He came across a village in the forest, and one couple over there at the well, drawing water. They gave him some water to drink. After drinking that water, he lay down to rest. In a dream, he saw that Sita and Ram had personally taken him and showed him the way back to his village. Then he woke up in the morning, and he saw that the village where he'd seen is gone, the well is gone, but somehow he's back at his village home in Kanchi. And of course, now when we think of Kanchi, we think of some big city, but there were little areas. Around one temple there'd be a few houses, and around another temple, and even up until fairly recently, the Vishnu Kanchi and the Chinna Kanchi and the Shiva Kanchi, they were actually separate. There was land in between them until recently. So Ramanuja, he was in one village in Kanchi, and he found himself just there. Then he could understand that this is the mercy of Bhagavan. Bhagavan has saved me and brought me back. Because actually to be in the forest is very dangerous because of tigers and whatnot. So Ramanuja went on with his normal life at Kanchi, and several months later, after going to the Ganga and coming back, Yadava Prakash came, and when they saw Ramanuja, they weren't very happy, because their whole trip was, one major reason they went on that trip was to get rid of Ramanuja, and they found he's going on with life as usual. So they weren't very happy. And they thought that, maybe Ramanuja, he actually understood. They could understand that Govinda must have tipped him off. So they didn't make any more plans to kill him, because they didn't want to get found out. So Ramanuja continued to teach, and he was becoming quite famous. And one day at his home, this one Yamuna Acharya came to his home. Means he's coming for door to door begging. That is the system. So Ramanuja very much welcomed him, and he learned that Yamuna was from Srirangam, and they were discussing, and then Ramanuja could understand that this is a person I should accept to teach me. He himself was teaching, but he himself was teaching. That means he knows everything by himself, but still Ramanuja himself, he took instruction, further instruction. So he thought I should take from Yamuna Acharya, and he begged to be accepted as his disciple. So Yamuna Acharya said he was very happy with that, and then Ramanuja was supposed to go to Srirangam to take initiation and instruction from Yamuna, who was just visiting Kanchi. Now, Ramanuja's influence increased so much that even Yadava Prakash and his disciples, they actually became followers of Ramanuja. The Guru became the disciple of Ramanuja. That also happened in the case of Madhvacharya, who took his sannyas initiation was from Achyuta Preksha, who was a Mayavadi. He was in the Shankara line, but Madhva preached to him and gave him the proper understanding. So that may happen with great devotees. Then that's a rare instance where the Guru accepts that actually my disciple, he understands better than me. Something like that in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, with Keshava Bharati, his sannyas guru. Then Ramanuja in Kanchi, he got news, he was sent news that Yamunacharya is enacting the pastimes of sickness. He may pass away from this world. So Ramanuja left. But by the time he reached there, Yamuna had just passed away. He got there too late to see him still alive. But everyone noticed that Yamunacharya was lying there, dead you could say, but his body, spiritual body, looking very blissful, very pure, very calm and peaceful. But he noticed that his left hand was open, but his right hand was closed up with 3 fingers closed up, which looked quite unusual. You see, 3 fingers closed up. Then Ramanuja, he could understand. There's some significance to this. So Ramanuja, he said that these 3 fingers of Yamuna, they're closed up like this. By closing the 3 fingers, he's indicating 3 instructions that he wants to give to myself. So these 3 instructions for me are that I am deputed by him to protect the people of the world from the impersonalism of denying the personality of Godhead by bestowing upon them the process of Sharanagati, surrender at the lotus feet of Narayana. I will protect them from this impersonalism. So when he said this, then 1 finger of Yamunacharya opened up. Although he's apparently dead, but not really dead. And enacting the pastime. In one sense, you can say. The pure devotees, we shouldn't think of they live or they die in the same way that we do. Then, Ramanuja said that, again, for the welfare of the people of the world, I will prepare a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras that will establish the Supreme Person as the ultimate reality. Then another finger became straightened out. And Ramanuja said, for the purpose of honoring Parashara Muni, who in ancient times established the relationship between the jivas, the living beings, and Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, I shall name one of my disciples who has similar qualities to him after him. And then Yamuna, his 3rd finger, became extended. So in this way, Yamunacharya was one of the gurus of Ramanuja. One prominent feature of Ramanuja's Sampradaya, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much appreciated, is that of service to the devotees. Very high estimation of the devotees. So Ramanuja himself exemplified this by great devotion to his gurus. So when everyone saw this, that he had understood the mind of Yamunacharya, then all the Sri Vaishnavas, or all the followers of Yamunacharya, they all understood that, yes, Ramanuja, he is the right person to be our leader, even though he's young, but he's the right person to be our leader and our proper guide. They accepted that. So Ramanuja then, he lived at Srirangam for the rest of his life. Of course, he traveled here and there, and for some years he was at Melkote, but basically this was his base. And he's still living here. The deity of Ramanuja, you can see, that deity is he. He sat down. His leaving this world was not really leaving this world. He left this world and he's just sat down and he's still there. And the deity is still there. There are three deities of Ramanuja that were cast or prepared in his very life. That one is at Melkote, I believe, one is at Sri Perambata, and the third one is here. But no one made that deity. That is his spiritual body. That is he. He's still here. Although in another sense, it said he's gone to the Parampada, or the Vaikuntha world. But he's still here, right here, in Srirangam. And you can go there and take his blessings. So Ramanuja was living as a householder, but eventually he accepted sannyas. There's a story behind that also, how in accepting sannyas, Ramanuja also demonstrated the principle that we should not see Vaishnavas in terms of caste. The immediate reason for his accepting sannyas is because his wife, Ramanuja's wife, insulted the wife of his guru, because his guru was superficially from a lower caste. So his wife insulted the wife of his guru, and then Ramanuja thought that this is better leave her. So he took sannyas for the good of the world. He took sannyas by going before the deity and praying to be exclusively engaged in his service. Exclusively engaged means no more entanglement, no more diversions of family life. So he re-established the Tridandi sannyas. That was going on in the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, but it was given a great boost by Ramanuja, whom he himself is sannyasi. He's known as Yatindra, Yatiraj, the best of the sannyasis. These are some of the well-known names or appellations of Ramanuja. So yes, his position just became more and more strong. Not so much in the manner of a conqueror. In those days there were the Digvijayas, even up until recently. They go around and show their scholarship and defeat others. But Ramanuja's mood was not exactly like that. That I'm coming and defeating. Of course he would defeat, but his aim was not so much to defeat others and put them down as to lift them up and bring them in to the worship of Narayana. His aim was not to put others down to push himself up, but to benefit others by sharing with them the bliss of Sharanagati, Prapatti, or surrender to the Supreme Lord. So he became very powerful. He became very influential, we can say. More and more influential. And you can see that up to the present day, that even though Kali Yuga is so much progressed, but still the influence of Ramanuja is going on, and that's very much apparent here in Srirangam and in Tirupati and in Melkote and various places. His influence, it's still, even though there's not much teaching of what, but still because of what he taught, because of what he set up, it's still going on. And people are beginning to take an interest in that again. despite all this atheistic propaganda. Still that's going on, because there's substance in that. Something in which there's no substance, that cannot last. But Ramanuja gave such a process. Reality, service to the Supreme Lord, affectionate service. So in this way, he's becoming more and more popular. But definitely, if someone preaches the truth effectively and becomes popular for that, then envious people, they will increase in their envy. So there was one king at Kanchi, Chola king, who was a devotee of Shiva. Now if he was actually a devotee of Shiva, he should have appreciated Ramanuja. But there was the idea that Shiva is supreme. There was this rivalry, Shaivites against Vaishnavas. There was this idea that we're opposed. The Shaivas don't like the Vaishnavas, and the Vaishnavas don't like the Shaivas. No, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and going back and forth like this. So this king, he wanted to kill Ramanuja. So Ramanuja is a problem, what's the solution? Kill him. Now that's an extremely sinful thing. Who could think of killing such a saintly person? But in their perverted consciousness, they thought that he's a problem. He's preaching the wrong thing. They didn't want to discuss with him philosophy, but just kill him, cut him out. We have the power. I'm a king, I have the power. Just cut him out. That's all. Okay, cut him out in this case. Kill him. Then our problem is finished. It'll be good for them. Maybe they probably thought like that, but it's a perverse way of thinking. That if this person is just removed, that will be good. So this king, the Chola king at Kanchi, he wanted to kill Ramanuja. So he thought that, okay, we'll call Ramanuja for discussion and debate, and with our scholars, if he accepts what they say, if he agrees to be converted to Shaivism, then okay. If not, we'll kill him. That was the idea. So he sent messengers to Srirangam, come to Kanchi. The king is calling you for debate about you're having so much influence promoting Vishnu is supreme. Well, come and debate with our scholars. So, that story, his initiation also from Goshti Purna. That's a well-known story. I didn't get it in my notes. So 18 times he went from Srirangam to Kanchi to get mantra diksha. 17 times. No. Give me initiation. No. Begging for initiation. No. You're not qualified. You're not ready. 18th time. After 18th time, walking up and down. Not Srirangam. Yeah, you all know better than me. Now this story that he went and he went up and said and shouted it out to everyone, that story it's now being challenged actually. So I'm not going to tell that. Well, I am, but it's now being challenged because he said that, well, if he went up on the Gopuram that would be in the Agraham, it would be all Brahmanas who are qualified and already knew it anyway. So there's some controversy about that now. Although that seems to have been the accepted story for many years. Anyway, now we're talking about how this king, Krimikanta, he wanted to forcibly either convert Ramanuja or kill him. So Ramanuja's cousin, Kuresh, he thought this person is very wicked. You can't trust him. He's very bad. So he told Ramanuja, you don't go. You give me your sannyas dress. I'll go in your place. So Kuresh went in his place. And the king greeted him and said, now you have to convert to Shaivism. And Kuresh disagreed. He said, no. He thought he was Ramanuja. So Kuresh was quite forthright with him and quite rude and told him, you're bogus. This Shiva worship is all bogus. So the king became very angry and had his eyes burned out. He said, now I'm going to burn. And Kuresh said, very good. Then I won't have to see you anymore. I became so sinful. I became contaminated by seeing you, so thank you very much. By burning my eyes, I won't have to see you. He is such nishtha, such faith. So then he wasn't killed, he was left to go. After burning his eyes out, he was let to go. Wander, just left in the forest, which means practically to kill him. If you're left blind in the forest, then some tiger or some creature is going to come and kill you. But Kuresh, he never prayed, no, please don't. No, he was completely calm and composed. He didn't protest, he didn't beg for mercy. He thought, all right, this I'm doing is service to Guru and let him do whatever he likes. So some people in Kanchi, they weren't very happy with this. They knew that our king is a demon, so they held Kuresh and they got him back to Srirangam. And then that king, he got some disease by which there were all worms living in his throat. It became known as Krimi Kanta. So he had this horrible disease and he died of that shortly after. So Ramanuja took Kuresh before the deity and prayed for the restoration of the sight, and Kuresh got his sight back. Anyway, there are so many nice stories. And Ramanuja lived here. Of course, he was in Melkote for, 12 years? So many. Then 120 years. At the age of 120 years, he prayed to Narayana that whatever I could do to serve your mission, to preserve and teach the actual message of the Vedas, so that is done. So whatever is done, whatever I could do to uplift the fallen souls, I've done. To whatever could be done to establish your lotus feet as the ultimate shelter, that I've done. So now, after many years in this world, 120 years, he said, now this body has become old and tired, so let me depart from this world and go to you. So his disciples, they weren't very happy. They said, you please stay with us. So he stayed little longer. We can't live with that. Yeah, we can't imagine living without you. So Ramanuja stayed for 3 more days, and in those 3 days he spoke his last instructions, in which he emphasized that you always remain in the company of devotees, pure devotees, whose life is dedicated to Narayana, and you serve your Guru, serve the Vaishnavas on the same level as God, have faith in the true teachings of the Vedas and in the words of the great Vaishnavas. Never become a slave of your senses. Always try to overcome lust, anger and greed, the great enemies of self-realization. Worship Narayana and take pleasure in chanting the names of Narayana as your only shelter and refuge. sincerely serve the devotees. By service to devotees, the highest service is done, and one quickly attains the supreme mercy. Remembering all these points and living like this, you live happily in this world with confidence of attaining the next. So in this way, Ramanuja, he summarized all the teachings that he'd been teaching all these years, and putting his head on the lap of Govinda, he apparently departed, although, like I say, his body is still there. Hare Krishna. So there's a short summary of the pastimes of Sri Ramanuja Acharya. So you can all please, while you're here, you go there and you pray at his lotus feet for the strength to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission, to preach Krishna consciousness according to our capacity. Every one of us, as he was very active in this world preaching Krishna consciousness, we may also become pure devotees by his mercy. Hare Krishna. So you all please take prasadam, and we hope to see you all again at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.